This video is my reaction to the Detroit Lions' 24-9 win over the Tampa Bay Bucs on Monday Night Football, the first game of a doubleheader, in fact. Detroit's a unique football team. I'm going to harken back to 2024 here multiple times during this video. This really reminds me of some of the defensive gems that Aaron Glenn and his staff put up later on in the 2024 season when they went 15-2. Yes, Jahmyr Gibbs had a great game, right? 2 touchdowns, 136 yards rushing, another 82 receiving. He definitely led the way in terms of production, him and Amon-Ra St. Brown, particularly early. But I want to be upfront. I will not be able to adequately describe what we saw tonight, how Kelvin, Sheppard, and his defensive staff and their players went out there and performed. The effort, the tenacity, the togetherness, how those guys were able to react as a unit, as a group. I said last year, late in the regular season, I think even before the Week 18 win over the Vikings, but definitely afterwards, that things like this just do not happen often in professional sports. There's nowhere to hide. There's going to be film of you. It's going to be analyzed, and teams will try to exploit things immediately. You'll get exposed if you have weaknesses out there. In Detroit, absent their starting secondary. Yeah, I know Aleem McNeil was a huge boost, right? And Aiden Hutchinson took over with some of his pass rushes in the second half, I thought. He'd been quiet for like a quarter and a half. He had 5 or 6 pressure wins. I think he drew at least one holding call. Probably should have gotten another one. But what Sheppard and his staff did with guys like Rock Ya-Sin, Arthur Millette, yeah, those are veterans who've been out on the field a lot, but Eric Hallett, Thomas Harper, Nick Whiteside, I think Loren Strickland as well, what they were able to get done in a game where Tampa Bay couldn't run the ball. And so Baker Mayfield was forced to throw the ball 50 times. Now, another way to look at it is if you were Tampa Bay and you were trying to test Detroit's thin secondary, you'd throw the ball a lot. I think that this was kind of like forced upon them, meaning forced upon Tampa Bay, and that they were unable, I should say, to run the ball successfully. Amik Robertson did have a nice game, in my opinion. I know he got beat some. He forced a fumble, critical fumble in the second quarter, even though John Morton's offense refused to put any distance between Detroit and the Bucs in that second quarter. Those turnovers that were forced by Amik with the forced fumble and then Millette with that sick strip interception, whatever you want to quantify it, that at least kept Tampa Bay from having an opportunity to score. We would obviously like Detroit and Jared Goff to be able to put some points on the board in those two situations, really create distance with Tampa Bay getting the ball, to open the third quarter. But in any case, Millette, Ya-Sin, Robertson, veterans, right? But then on the other side, you got young guys. Eric Hallett, he had 8 tackles. Thomas Harper, who had 3, I believe, maybe 4. Nick Whiteside, 3 passes defensed. I believe 2 down there in the final sequence or near the final sequence late in the fourth quarter. Detroit had 12 PDs on the night. I think 3 or 4 of them were at the line of scrimmage. I almost suspect that statistically they missed one. I thought there was another one that didn't get credited to Derek Barnes. There's a lot to talk about. In my opinion, Barnes played an underrated game. He had the sack. I thought he had 2 PDs, but he's only officially credited with 1. Nearly forced a fumble. Actually did force a fumble, but forward progress had been established. Tyrus Wheat, had 1.5 sacks. He tripped Mayfield in the fourth quarter, but I thought he was being held on that play, so to me it kind of balances out. Aleem McNeil definitely had impact. DJ Reader had a late quarterback hit. Hutchinson was a thorn in the entire Bucs offensive line, particularly in that second half. I thought the Lions defense just really overwhelmed the Bucs offensive line at times. It's honestly a little surprising to me on multiple levels. First of all, that Kelvin Sheppard's group, their staff, was able to put this game plan together and really, I think, return to their roots. I think you saw a lot of 2-man setups in obvious passing situations. It could have been, one safety dropping down, but predetermined stuff, sure. But a lot of times you're talking about 2 high safety look on 3rd and 6, and those safeties are reacting, helping out the man defenders, and Baker Mayfield's trying to find time. What's interesting, or I should say surprising about it to me, is I saw the same Bucs team go to Seattle 3 weeks ago at this point, win 38-35, and Baker Mayfield didn't get sacked once. And that's a Seattle team that it thrives on generating consistent pressure with 4-man rushes generally, and they weren't able to get anything done against the Bucs, at least on that day. I think that Tampa Bay may have made a mistake in suiting up Mike Evans because now, well, first of all, I don't know about you. I was shocked when they walked him off the field. I think second quarter, and only one guy is supporting him. And like even a loose hold, to me, I don't know what you thought, but to me, he looked semi-conscious, almost kind of staggering with his eyes closed. Yeah, he could have been frustrated, or it could have been just been a knee or hip or whatever they said it was, but it was reported as a concussion. Watching the guy walk off, he looked like a fighter that if he was my fighter, I wouldn't want to let continue. Emeka Egbuka, made it the whole way. He did only finish with 4 catches and 58 yards, obviously. No touchdowns. To me, Kelvin Sheppard did a great job of mixing things up. Throwing some zone in there, don't get me wrong. I know last week they felt like they went away from who they are, playing a little bit more zone, talking about against the Chiefs. To me, I saw a lot of 3-man rush concepts, or three defensive linemen on the field, and then Barnes, Anzalone, and Jack Campbell. The same look they started to give in the Ravens that we struggled with so much. Basically a 3-man rush with an add-on potential. Could be a QB spy, could be 2-man, actually 2-man, but it could be some stuff where the safety rolls to one side that's predetermined. Kelvin Sheppard looks extremely comfortable with his guys on the field. Really, it's a lot of the same looks, in my opinion, that they used when Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph were on the field. I don't know what Jack Campbell has said. What Dan Campbell, has said after the game. I don't get the chance to watch press conferences. I'm trying to produce this. It's a heavy workload to get this produced. That's why it takes me so long. I think really my impression is that Kelvin Sheppard just really returned to what the style that him and Dan Campbell want these guys to play. I would say from that perspective, this is a legendary performance by the defense. On par, perhaps even better, than their Week 18 win over the Vikings last season. If you recall, Minnesota did come into that game, Week 18, averaging 29 points per game in their previous 6 wins. And they got stomped. They got stomped into a mud hole, right, by Aaron Glenn and a defense that was missing a ton of starters, just like this one. Tonight, though, it's the depth of the secondary talent. Arnold, Branch, Kirby Joseph, DJ Reed, who's on IR. I don't know. Maybe you don't think this one's as impressive. I think it's almost more so, given the level of unproven guys that were on the field in the secondary. Strickland, Hallett, like I said, Whiteside as well, who had 3 PDs. I think this is a very special win, in my opinion. I think you could see the sense of urgency that the Lions coaches and players had, particularly on the defensive side. They were completely locked in. Amazing effort, commitment, tackled really well. The Bucs did too. The Bucs defense deserves a lot of credit. I will talk about that in a minute. But Detroit was just very sharp in everything they did. Tampa Bay ran 66 offensive plays and only generated 251 yards, so 3.8 yards per play. Baker Mayfield was 28 of 50. He clearly did not like the coverages he was seeing post-snap. Sometimes had to hold on to the ball a little bit longer. Oftentimes double pumped. A couple times was able to scramble out of there, move out a little bit, and try to create some more space. But even on that 18-play drive, right, where they converted a 4th and 4 to K. Dotton in the fourth quarter, when it's 24-9. Then they converted a 4th and 5 in the red zone on the DPI on Arthur Millette. I thought Millette got a little bit tired, down there in that sequence. But he played like he understood what was at stake. And meaning, Arthur Millette was signed on October 8th, so not even 2 weeks ago. I think 12 days ago as I record this. And they went out there and suited up against, Mike Evans played. Emeka Egbuka played as well. I'm excited about this win for the Lions fan base, but for the Lions team to get the 5 wins before the bye. I kind of lost my train of thought there. My point is, Tampa Bay stressed the secondary because of the game situation, maybe because of game plan, but probably because their run game got shut down. And guys like Millette, Robertson, Hallett, Whiteside, all up to the task. Rock Ya-Sin, of course, they called it cramping. To me, it looked like a hamstring. This defense just refused to fold. This team, really refused to fold. And that's why I think this is a special win. I'm understanding that other people may not have the same opinion as me for something that occurred, still in the early season. To get to the bye with 5 wins, with all the talent that you're going to face on the road in the second half here. I think at Philly, at Washington, who doesn't look like the same team right now that maybe a lot of people expected, but also at the Rams. I think it has to be mentioned, however, that Tampa Bay's defense was a worthy adversary. Detroit missed a lot of chances to extend. I think, starting in the second quarter, right? You have the forced fumble by Amik, and then the strip, interception, whatever you want to call it, from Millette. And they get nothing to show for it offensively. You get the missed 54-yard field goal from Bates, and then Goff throws the interception. To me, just initial impression, I felt like Goff was as surprised by post-snap coverages, the post-snap coverages he saw tonight, as I've ever seen him, really. There's probably a couple other games, that I'm unable to recollect at this point in time. Have to give credit to Todd Bowles and Tampa Bay's defensive staff and what they were able to put together. Yes, Detroit did get 379 yards of offense, right? But I thought Tampa Bay was still a dangerous defense, even mid to late fourth quarter. But especially once Detroit went up 14-0 and then got the 2 turnovers, Tampa Bay's defense stood strong, allowed them to get to within 14-3 late in the second quarter, obviously, and then get the ball to open the second half. I do want Gibbs is a star, right? He will be a star. That 78-yard touchdown run is such a simple concept. Duo / inside zone, whatever you want to call it. That they're comboing / double teaming defensive tackles, and you get the insert block by Raymond, which has been a cool concept for the Lions. It's very similar to what they used multiple times against the Ravens in the second half of their road win back in Week 3, and then of course used it to convert to 4th and 2 to St. Brown on the pass play near midfield. In any case, I thought that Gibbs' ability to contribute in the pass game was remarkable because it was so simple. You have those 2 swing passes out to the right flats. They're shocking in that they're so, I want to say they look easy to execute. I think Goff probably knows the coverage and knows that it's going to be there, but the yards after the catch that's generated is difficult for the defense to maintain their coverage structure against all the weapons that the Lions have and try to handle or limit Gibbs in the pass game on those very simple concepts that generated a lot of yards, at least tonight. I think Goff finished 20 of 28 or 20 of 29 passing. It didn't feel like it to me. When I looked at the stats at the end of the game in collecting stats and trying to produce this video, I would have guessed he was like 19 of 32 just from the game flow, just from the way he looked post-snap. The Bucs defense got after him, especially on third down. Some of those looks where they are lined up off the line in a traditional alignment. They're not mugged up on third down. That's a unique team defensively. I respect what the Bucs do over there, what Todd Bowles is able to accomplish. I will admit, was not the biggest fan of Todd Bowles, particularly in 2023 when the Ravens go down to Tampa Bay and beat them. I was not a huge fan of the Bucs and the way Todd Bowles does stuff, but since then it's really grown on me. I respect what he does. Their safety, I think it's Tyke Smith, had 13 tackles. Servakier Dennis, the inside linebacker, I think number 8, he had 12 tackles. Levante David was able to finish the game. I thought he went out once and looked like he was struggling a little bit to get up after a play. Tampa Bay finished with 4 sacks. They had 9 quarterback hits. These 2 teams, in my observation, from seeing them play in 2023, 2024, early in last season, and then now here early to midseason, I guess, 2025. There is great competition and really great theater. Tampa Bay's defense shut down David Montgomery. I think he finished with 21 yards on 13 carries. There it is on your screen right there. And even Gibbs. Look, Gibbs had 17 attempts for 136 in terms of total yards. But if you subtract his 78-yard touchdown run in the second quarter, he produced just 58 yards on his 16 other carries. So to me, I think you've got a quality defense over there that deserves a lot of credit for the way that they played, especially when their offense was really struggling. I think their first 7 possessions go 5 punts in a row, downs or a fumble and then interception. So Sheppard'S defense is pitching a shutout. Meanwhile, the Bucs defense just refuses to fold. Their run defense is legit. I know that they gave up 164. And again, it's going to be difficult for me to encapsulate this. There's 131 plays in this game. The teams were, even in the turnover department, 2-2. I thought that was going to be important coming into this game. If Detroit could be +1 or more, then I thought they had a great chance to win the football game. The second quarter turnovers really, they wasted. I do want to mention one stat that I think is otherworldly from the standpoint of what Detroit's coaches did this week to get the secondary guys ready to go. So Hallett, Millette, Rock Ya-Sin, Thomas Harper, Nick Whiteside, and I think it's Loren Strickland. That group puts up 24 tackles, and that's 18 solos, by the way, and 7 PDs, as well as the interception that Millette stole from the tight end. What Kelvin Sheppard accomplished tonight, well, there's a lot to say. Lions fans, you're happy. You should be. I'm super happy. I was really celebrating the field goal that Jake Bates banked in off the upright because I knew, okay, it's a 2-score game at that point. You got a great chance to win. But I think there's a larger thing here, or a possibility. What Kelvin Sheppard and Dan Campbell just did here is very similar, I think, conceptually to something that Mike McDonald did in Baltimore in 2023. And that's show a ton of guys around the league, DBs, safeties, corners. Hey, you can come here and you can, I don't want to say overproduce, but you can produce more here, and maybe a small sample size, granted, this is only one game, than you have been recently, Arthur Millette, Rock Ya-Sin, or than you ever have in the NFL. My point is, players see these games, and they see it in a more accurate manner than I do, and than most of you do. It's an opportunity, and I think that was something that Aikman or maybe a sideline reporter talked about early in the game. Maybe it was pregame. You have a chance to put some film out there and further your career. To me, in my experience, one thing I've always enjoyed about sports or noticed, especially as a coach, when you have your own ambitions or desires, and then the goals of other people, a group of people, specifically players, and those things converge, your own ambitions and your own goals, and then a group of players, athletes, high-level motivated guys, when your desires, your goals all converge at the same place, you can get things done as a group that maybe individually shouldn't be possible. I think tonight's an example of that. Sheppard and the defensive guys in the secondary, they deserve the bye, but they deserve a ton of credit. I want to try to do it justice tomorrow with some film study videos. Some individual performances to talk about. Jack Campbell, I think, finished with 8 tackles, a sack. He had that amazing play to halt an early Tampa Bay possession on like a 3rd down screen to the running back. Again, I think Sheppard's 2-man setup is a pain for a lot of these offenses in the NFL. I'm not sure I don't know how long it will persist. It's a legitimate scheme in my opinion. I did a video on it a few weeks ago, and I want to revisit it. Going to take a while to get through all of these plays. Derek Barnes, like I said, had 5 tackles, 5 solos, the sack, 1 pass defense. Thought there was another one, a near forced fumble, or one where they ruled forward progress. The Lions defense held Tampa Bay to 41 rushing yards on 12 carries. Really made them one-dimensional early. Offensively for Detroit, definitely have some issues there that you'd like to sort out or sharpen things up. Sam Laporta had 3 catches. The Bucs were prepared for 2 play setups, 2 formations where Laporta gets the ball, and it's usually in the right flats. Detroit, typically gets him free once or twice a game on that concept. Tampa Bay shut it down. The corner was there every time. Jameson Williams was held without a catch, which I think is notable. Now, St. Brown scorched Tampa Bay's defense early, right? He only finished with 6 catches on 10 targets. He did have the early touchdown. He was quiet from like late second quarter on. Really wasn't targeted much. I think Tampa Bay did a great job bringing pressure from certain locations to force Goff to get rid of the ball, or in fact, get him on the ground. Teams, to me, on 3rd downs, they seem to be jumping St. Brown. So inside linebackers, nickel DBs, whatever, they seem to be basically playing man on St. Brown and then taking away in breaking routes. I felt like the Chiefs did it. I mentioned it in my reaction video then. I kind of highlighted it in a video I did on Goff. I think as well. So you're more than welcome to let me know what you're seeing. Live broadcast is difficult to try to encapsulate everything. I do like to take a look at the first half And so in order to do so, I have to talk about some stats a little bit. Lions defense was incredible in the first half. These are literally me, looking at my notes. They held the Bucs to 3 points that they really shouldn't have got. Twice the football was handed to Jared Goff and John Morton in the second quarter in great field position. I think both times past the midfield, or maybe once on the negative 49. Nothing to show for it. Detroit held Tampa Bay to 58 yards in the first half. That was 2.5 yards per play. I mean, just shocking the way that those guys were able to. I mean, they dismantled Baker Mayfield in the passing attack. Baker Mayfield was 9 of 16 in the first half. I think he finished with 258 total, 228, excuse me. But in the first half, he was 9 of 16 for 47 yards. He had the one interception, the amazing play by Millette, one possession after Amik had punched the ball out from, I think it was Sheppard. He had the missed field goal, and then unfortunately the interception by Goff that, basically hands Tampa Bay 3 points. The Lions had 118 yards rushing in the first half, and that looked great statistically. Somewhat misleading in that Jahmyr Gibbs had that 78-yarder to put him up 14-0, with less than 6 minutes left in the second quarter. That really kick-started a wild sequence there in the final 6 minutes, right? The Goff interception, Tampa Bay going down and getting a field goal. I do want to talk about two decisions that Dan Campbell made. I did not support and just cannot him forfeiting points on the third possession. It's in the first quarter, late first quarter, about a minute and 20 left or something like that. I think as the 3rd and 9 completion to Raymond is over the middle. Goff had got strip sacked on the second possession, right? They're driving or they have an opportunity. I think they're just past midfield. So to me, Detroit's dominating the first half. Really could have been up 10-0 or 14-0 after the second possession. And for me, true lack of awareness in that you go for it on that 4th and 2 from the 15. Your team deserves a 2-score lead. And there's just no justification for it at all. Not with the defense playing the way they were, in my opinion. They had stopped Baker Mayfield and the Bucs twice on 3 and outs. 3 and out, 3 and out, the first 2 possessions. To get inside the red zone there, 3rd and 9 completion to Raymond. Maybe if you didn't get that close, maybe he'd kick the field goal. I just don't think it makes any sense at all, and I'll never support that decision. If someone offered you a 10-0 lead after the first quarter at home and your defense is pitching a shutout, meaning they haven't got a first down yet, you would take it. At least I hope you would, right? Otherwise, you're an idiot. I just did not like the play scheme in terms of what was there for Goff, throwing it to Tesla in the end zone. Yeah, there's some contact. I don't think that there's much available for Goff on some of these 3rd and 4th downs, and I think this requires a recalibration. Basically, if people are going to take away St. Brown on some 3rd downs by bracketing him, if you want to call it, or leverage defending him with inside linebackers, A, you've got to have some better concepts to attack things, and B, you got to stop going forward on 4th and 2 and just take the points, at least in this situation. I understand it's what Dan Campbell does, but I think it'll come back to haunt you at some point if you leave points out there on the board. It didn't tonight, clearly. But for the first part of the first half, obviously it didn't matter. Sheppard's defense was, first of all, they were very active. They were hostile. Hands on the ball often. The passes defense at the line of scrimmage are notable and they're obvious. 2 of them I thought were really amazing. There's one down the right sideline that I think it's Whiteside. He's covering Egbuka. Maybe it's a 3rd quarter, so I know I've skipped forward a little bit here. But he turns and he's able to get his hand on the ball. It initially looked like maybe a drop. I thought Baker Mayfield put it in the perfect spot, and Whiteside just gets a fingernail on it or maybe a finger. Remarkable play. In addition, the one that unfortunately Mike Evans got hurt on, Rock Ya-Sin, I think it's Rock Ya-Sin, is there, and he's getting hands on it. Evans looked to me like he did actually catch the football, so it comes out at some point either at the ground or on it. I thought the defense just high effort, incredible range, great tackling in the first half. Jack Campbell, I think, had 5 tackles, 2 TFLs. Barnes had the sack, the pass defense in the first half. Aleem McNeil looked really disruptive through like 3 drives. Maybe his get-off dipped or decreased a little bit in the second half. I can't say that I believe that, but I didn't see him show up as much in terms of pushing the pocket. On the first possession, and I think the third, he was right in there to basically, collapse the pocket in Mayfield's lap. The first 7 possessions for the Bucs went punt, 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 fumble, interception. That, to me, is just so rarely seen at the NFL level when you're missing so many defensive starters. I do want to talk about the Lions' ninth possession here. It actually occurs into the third quarter. I moved beyond the first half at this point. It's the Gibbs drive, right? You have Gibbs with touches on all but 2 of these plays, I believe. You've got the completion to Laporta in the right flats on the 2nd and 5. Again, it's another one of those plays where defensively from the Bucs where they seem to have a pretty good idea of what's coming, or they seem to be in the perfect call. And Bowles is just, he's underrated, man. I think he's the defensive play caller for them, but I could be wrong. Whoever's calling the defense for them, I thought did a great job for the most part tonight. The 3rd and 2 to Brock Wright, who I think had 3 catches tonight. Maybe it was only 2, but that was timely because it converted, and number 1 and number 2, it got the ball near midfield. And then Gibbs on that short toss, I thought that one hit twice. This one is the 1st and 10, -49. It's the middle play in this sequence, the 4th one from the top or 4th one from the bottom. Goes for 15. He was in 4th gear before he got to the line, and I thought there was a chance for him to break it. I think it's the one where he weaves in and then back out again. But in any case, 2 plays later, this is a beautiful play. I mistyped it. It's broken bunch. It's the 2nd and 7 from the 33, from the Bucs 33. If it's a positive number, it's on the Bucs side. If it's a negative number, it's on the Lions side, the yard line, the 2nd column over from the left. But in any case, it's the swing pass to the right to Gibbs, and he's behind Sewell. I thought he was going to score. I don't know about you. I was like, this is it. This is a touchdown. This is in. And Gibbs kind of like after he gets tackled, it's a great play by the DB. Gibbs kind of looks up at Sewell like, what are you doing, man? I have no idea what's been said post-game about it because, like I said, I record these. My production time is kind of elongated. In any case, then the very next snap is the 5-yard touchdown. He took over here. I mean, Gibbs looked spectacular to me on this drive. Puts him up 21-9. They're able to, I don't want to say hold on, but they're able to get to 5 and 2 despite large stretches of the game where I thought the offense looked lackluster. The interception from Goff to Jamel Dean, who had I think got 2 penalties called on him in the first half, one of which was negated, which was bullshit in my opinion. But in any case, Goff throws the interception there. He just really struggled to get a beat on what the Bucs were doing. Tampa Bay, I think, switched gears a little bit from maybe what they've done so far this year and maybe what they've done against Goff and company in the past. Detroit's offense definitely left a lot of points out there. I can't assign blame to Goff, John Morton, or whoever so far. I will say this. I did not think early on Taylor Decker looked like he was going to be able to be effective. I thought Diaby gave him a lot of trouble. Diaby was the guy that beats Decker for the strip sack on the 2nd possession, and I thought he beat him twice on run concepts to his side. But he seemed to settle down, or at least the pass pro did at times. For Detroit to get to 5 and 2 without all the secondary talent they had out there, and Kirby's been dealing with an issue, all season apparently. I think it just says so much about this Lions team, their coaching staff, what Kelvin Sheppard is made of, and what these guys on defense are made of. The whole group, again, it's extremely reminiscent of what they were able to accomplish late in the 2024 season with so much defensive talent, so many starters out at various times. I could not have more positive things to say about that group of defensive guys, particularly the young guys who came out there and performed, as well as Millette and Rock Ya-Sin veterans, who one was not able to finish the game and Millette did. In any case, you guys are more than welcome to let me know what you think elements I may have missed in this reaction video. It was a fun game to watch. It was one where I felt like I couldn't exhale until Nick Whiteside's final pass deflection in the end zone when it's 24-9. And you know that, okay, Tampa Bay's not going to get another score here, or if they do, it's going to be a late, a garbage touchdown in the final couple of minutes. I hope you guys enjoyed the reaction video. I know you enjoyed the game. I look forward to trying to put out some compelling content for you as early as I possibly can on Tuesday. If you guys have any suggestions for what I should focus on first, I mean, it's quite obvious to me it's going to be the defense, but you're more than welcome to give me suggestions in the comment section. And finally, if you think other Lions fans would enjoy this reaction video, albeit one that's quite late at this point, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.